You've already worked with the button control quite a bit at this point, but there are a few different types of button control that act in a very similar way. You'll learn about the different types of button controls in this lesson. First, open the My Project sample file from your Sample Files folder. And add a new web form called controlstest.aspx. Switch to Design View and add a button control to the page. We are now going to set the properties of the button control. First, set the ID property of the button to Button Test. Set the text property of the button to Standard Button. Set the back color property of the button to Black. You learned how to set the back color property in Lesson 112. Set the fore color property of the button to White. And set the font size property of the button to Large. Note that in order to do this, you need to expand the font property in the Properties window. You can then select the size from the drop-down menu. As you can see, you have quite a lot of control over the appearance and style of your buttons. We're now going to add a link button to the page, just below the button. The link button control behaves in exactly the same way as a button, but the server will convert it into an HTML A tag rather than an HTML input submit control. This control appears to be a hyperlink, but acts like a button. Unlike a hyperlink, it posts back by using JavaScript code. We're now going to set the properties of the link button. Set the ID property to Link Button Test. Set the text property to Link Button. Set the fore color property to Red. And set the font bold property to True. Next, we're going to add an image button control to the page, just below the link button. Note that the image button appears just after the link button. This is because of the way the page is structured at the moment, and isn't something to worry about. The image button control, as you might expect, is a button that uses an image. Note that unlike the link button control, the image button doesn't need to use any JavaScript to submit the form. We're now going to add the testbutton.png image to the Images folder. You'll find it in the Sample Files folder under Images. You learned how to add files to a project in Lesson 1.7. We are now going to set the properties of the image button. Set the ID property to Image Button Test. And set the image URL property to ~images/testbutton.png. Note that you can either type this in, or simply use the Browse button next to the property, and find the image. The tilde symbol indicates the top level of your site, that is, the root folder where your web.config file is stored. You can use the tilde in this way on any control that has the runAt=server property. Controls that don't run on the server cannot use the tilde. Next, set the alternate text property to test image button. The alternate text property is exclusive to images. Alternate text was originally intended for users of text-only browsers. Where the browser couldn't display an image, the alternate text was displayed instead. Although today every major web browser is able to display images, alternate text is still useful for two reasons. One is that search engines use alternate text to identify which keywords to attach to an image. The second reason is that visually impaired users can use alternate text in conjunction with speech-to-text software. Note that if you look at the available events for each of the button types, you'll see that there are a few other events in addition to click. Using any event other than click for a button is extremely rare. The button, link button, and image button controls provide a choice of 3 different appearances for your buttons. You're going to be using the controlstest.aspx page to test controls through the rest of this session, so you need to remove the buttons before continuing. To do this, simply select them in Design View and press the Delete key. Alternatively, right-click on the controls and click Delete. You've now completed Lesson 4.2, Use Button Controls.